Nearly 9% of Minnesota doctors left their hospital and health system jobs in 2023, and the state is facing a serious physician shortage. This week we talk with emergency physician Edmond Irankunda, who might be just the kind of doctor Minnesota needs. This is Hospital Matters, a podcast from the Minnesota Hospital Association. We're having conversations about issues impacting hospitals, health systems, and patient care in Minnesota. I'm your host, Tim Nelson, and I'm joined in this episode by Dr. Edmond Irankunda, an emergency room physician at RiverView Health in Crookston. I asked him to talk about his journey to Minnesota's Red River Valley.
I was born in Rwanda, and in 91, we fled the country at the time of the genocide that happened in 1994, and so lived in different refugee camps in different countries in Africa for about 6 years before settling in Zimbabwe. And then we ended up moving to the United States in 2003. And so I was 12 years old at the time. And so we had some family connections in northern Indiana by the South Bend area. And so essentially that's where we settled. And then got our citizenship a few years later. And I did all my education, all my training from med school in undergrad in South Bend, Indiana. And then ultimately, after some exposure to some of the smaller rural hospitals around the area as a scribe, I really was drawn to emergency medicine and the type of care and the type of patient encounters you had and the unpredictability nature of just what you saw day to day. And so emergency medicine ended up drawing my attention and trained at Cincinnati, which was the first emergency medicine residency program in the country. And so they have a high reputation for excellence in training and care. And so I was married at the time with a son, and so my wife and my son came along with me, and then ultimately stayed there as faculty as well for my first 2 years out of training. And at this time, I always had an interest in going back to more of the small rural settings. I had a couple colleagues who had taken that route, and I knew that's what I felt I was called to do. And as much as I enjoyed what I was doing in Cincinnati, I knew it was time now to pivot and truly get a chance to use my skills and use my training to helping those who maybe do not have as many resources as we did over there.
What was calling you? What about the work spoke to you?
Sure. I think most of it came, so there's a balance to it. Half of it, I would say definitely there's more of a spiritual side of things for me. Having been in, refugee camps, having came to the country and having lived in government assisted housing, there was a lot of, there were a lot of people who helped me and my family navigating the transition to the United States. Um, People who had done, procedures that I needed at the time and, just did it pro bono or like utilized a lot of the social service that were there to kind of help me and my family get access to healthcare. So that part of it always was there, and I wanted to give back from that regard. But then on the other side of things, as I mentioned, from like the spiritual side of things, for me personally, I had truly felt like what I do needs to have some sort of like intimate level to it. And I found that working in a bigger city, there wasn't as much direct, intimate care that I was connecting to. The patients were great, the people who were there were also amazing. But at the end of the day, I felt like there was just so much the pace and the metrics and everything that was involved with taking care of patients was really more garnered towards what was expected in the output as opposed to truly taking time at the bedside. And what I've noticed and what I expected, and from what I, had looked into, especially knowing people who were working in that setting, was that there was some sort of like intimate care that happened in, especially in a rural setting where even though the volumes might be less, but you still have time with your patients, you're truly able to connect with them and then meet them where they are in regards to getting them the care they need and then helping them transition if they need something higher level, something more thorough. And so that calling for me was in combination between my past and my upbringing, as well as knowing just how much I could make a difference in a patient's life because the ER or the resources there at that time might be all they have in regards to accessing the healthcare system at that time.
You've sort of touched on two big cultural shifts here. One from a refugee fleeing Rwanda to a highly trained medical professional, and then another one from Indiana and Cincinnati, a fairly
Mhm.
large city, to
Mhm.
a small town, Crookston. Those are difficult transitions to make. How have you made them?
That's a great question. I still think I'm making that transition, to be honest. The biggest part has to be a balance between, I think, my personal life and my professional life. So I would say, as a family, so we now have two children. With my upbringing, I can thrive anywhere. I really do feel like I can thrive in any sort of situation with whatever is available to me, and that's because of what I've been through. But my wife definitely has enjoyed, even she was born in Indiana and has definitely enjoyed being closer to the biggest city. And so the transition for us has been I still travel when I come to Crookston for work. So we have not fully relocated to the area. So my family is in Cincinnati right now. And when it comes to my transition to Crookston here, when I'm up here for work, one of the biggest things I've done is I walk essentially the city. Like I try to see what's around here. If it's, bike, I bike as well up to Grand Forks and trying to get familiar with, what's around the area. And then most recently we just had the fair and, I figure out what better way of seeing what else is available within other small communities around. So volunteering with the RiverView Health Hospital booth that they had there was also pretty exciting and eye-opening in regards to like seeing my patients outside the hospital doors. And for me, that's something that I like. Some people are like, I'm okay not seeing my patients when I'm not working. But for me, especially coming to a small community like this, there have been people that I've met in their local stores, that I've gone to their businesses, have needed assistance personally with different things, including my car that just broke down a couple of times before replacing the battery there. But I've really encountered people outside of the hospital system and have met, the family members if they come in with their family members or if they come in as patients themselves. And so for me, that is the part that I like. I like seeing the person that I'm treating outside of the hospital doors. I think it makes the care that you give them a little bit better. I might not be a primary care physician in regards to like seeing them throughout, but that's as good as it gets when it comes to being an emergency medicine physician and getting a chance to see your patients before they come to you in their time of need.
How is that different from places like Cincinnati or bigger places you've worked?
So I would say the breadth of what you do tends to be a lot more broad here compared to there. So, there's certain, in the ERs of the bigger cities, you have providers that are in-house in the hospital who sometimes come down depending on what's going on. But here you tend to be the person that has to essentially manage all of this until the patient gets to where they need to go. And so they're either complex, injuries that need to be addressed sooner than later that I've encountered here where, the patients don't want to go to be transferred to a bigger city. They absolutely, absolutely do not need to, and they will challenge you to do as much as you can for them before deciding if they need to be sent somewhere else. And so I have definitely think about a gentleman who had to do like a complex hand laceration with an embedded foreign body in their hand, essentially had to do a minor surgical procedure to retrieve the item that had caused his injury. But typically, with how deep it was, with the nature of the injury, that particular case might have been handled differently in my previous employment because of the resources available there. And so, with people traveling hours sometimes to even get to our hospital here, there's a lot more onus on you to do as much as you can within your scope of practice, sometimes even pushing that edge a little bit, but doing the right thing by the patient. And there's a lot of discussion and honesty that comes with that and when you're taking care of that patient and they understand the lack of resources and but they also put a lot of trust in you to be able to do the right thing for them.
You've talked a little bit about your own family's support for you. I think a lot of patients in outstate Minnesota Also, count on that support outside the hospital, that they will get medical care, but they will also have family close at hand or friends close at hand that can help them. Talk to me a little bit about that network. I mean, do you feel that they appreciate having that proximity to home and to loved ones to help them heal?
That is definitely true. I realized that ultimately part of what we do in the ER is just the starting point, but having those family members or the close friends and that strong community support, it does make a huge difference in how the recovery process progresses for them once they transition back into their home setting from the hospital after their initial presentation. In the few months that I've been here, I have had the opportunity and ability to actually even follow up with some of the patients that I've seen already. And I would say that one of the strongest things that I have noticed is that community and the integration that, aside from even just the immediate family, like the friends or colleagues or peers that patients have, does go a long way in regards to assisting them in their recovery process, but also making that process a lot faster than it otherwise would. And so, having moved from Cincinnati, one of the things that they told me about was I would understand what Minnesota nice meant, and I have not only experienced that myself personally, but even seeing it in the lives of the people that I work with. It's definitely different. As I said, like I did not think I had it bad or that people were mean where I came from, but I thought they're actually pretty nice. But once I got here, I was like, man, you cannot compare to this. And I frequently tell my wife about that. I was like, I have never seen such a polite, even people who, they might say utilize the emergency department frequently, and some people get frustrated. They're still very nice, and it's so you can still have an honest conversation and have it amicably. I would say that has a huge aspect in the healing process for the patients that we see.
Just listening to you talk about this, I can hear the joy and the pleasure in your voice. Is this something that you think you'll be doing later in your life?
Tim, I really hope so. I really do. As I said, there's something that has to be said within the spirit when you find what and I don't use and I already used the term calling before, but when you are able to match it with a place and a people that fall in line with what you'd hope to find in an employer or in a place of employment with the patients, the administration, the entire system. I really would love to have this place be where I finish my career. They always say usually within the first 3 years of your career, that's when most of people will pivot and make a change to find that long-term place of employment where they hope to finish out their career. And for me, honestly, I'll truly say that, happy is an emotion, but I truly feel joyful. Like I am excited when I'm coming here to work, and I'm also excited when I go back to see my family, of course, because I miss them. But at the same time, they've been very supportive. My wife has known how I've always wanted to do this, and she has truly noticed a difference in how I feel coming from work and some of the encouragement that I have. Usually, you're taking care of patients, but it's not often where you feel like your tank is being put into as well by the people you're taking care of, as well as by the supporting community that you're involved in as well.
I don't want to put you on the political spot, but as you
Hmm.
know, there are some changes coming in healthcare finance in the United States,
Hmm.
probably some reductions in Medicaid in the
Hmm.
coming years. And there's a lot of concern that hospitals like yours will be under unprecedented financial pressure. There may even be some closures. What would a place like Crookston lose if it didn't have a hospital like yours?
Definitely the recent legislature that has been passed. I think we need to truly understand what some of those repercussions are for the changes that are going to be implemented. And this community, as I said, it's not even just this town. There's a lot of other smaller towns nearby who have their patient populations coming to our facility to see us because of the care and because of the value that we provide to not just our city, but within our county and the surrounding counties. And it'll be a huge loss. And I know we're integrated very well within our emergency department with our clinics. The fear, of course, is definitely people losing those providers, for those who don't know, it's, operating at thin margins, especially given the nature of the higher number of patients who are insured by Medicaid and Medicare. If they're able to withstand that and maybe stay open, the loss of even their primary care settings is definitely going to continue to increase the volumes of patients who come into the ER because they do not have any other medical provider for them to see. And so there's always a concern regarding just that quality that, drew us to people like me to this area, right? Being able to take the time with a patient and now going back to the place where maybe you do not have that amount of time as you otherwise would because there's the next sickest patient is the one who has not even been seen. That can easily get affected. And not only that, you're dealing with people who also are dealing with financial struggles to where they might not be able to even pay for that visit that they just are coming to see you for. And so it's a struggle on both ends, on the patient side as well as on the team that's taking care of those patients.
I think a lot of people might also not realize they might think of, the Red River Valley and rural Minnesota as being much older, much whiter, but you have a pretty significant migrant worker community there and a pretty significant community of people of color as well, right? I mean, it's a complicated and diverse place.
Exactly. Yes, I was pleasantly surprised to see that diversity in the patient population when I came here. I did not know that about this area when I came here. And I have been, as you mentioned, there's a significant Hispanic population that's been settled here for years with different generations as well as other different ethnicities here as well. And so this is something where it definitely affects everybody, and but even more those who are at the extreme ends of of poverty even more in these situations and even the people who say they're not insured by Medicare. I think this is something that affects everybody because when they come to the emergency department. I don't know who has what insurance, right? But at the same time, if it's backlogged, if it's busy, we go based on who's the sickest, regardless of what your insurance status is, right? And so at the end of the day, we are a community, we're each other's neighbors, and what affects our brothers and sisters ends up affecting all of us. And so this is something that definitely needs to be taken seriously and not lightly as these changes get implemented next year and over the next few years to see what's happening and addressing it sooner than later.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your time today. And I hope you get to be part of that community for many years to come.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Again, that's Dr. Edmond Irankunda, an emergency room physician at RiverView Health in Crookston, Minnesota. I'm Tim Nelson, and you've been listening to Hospital Matters from the Minnesota Hospital Association. Join us next time for another look at issues impacting hospitals, health systems, and patient care in Minnesota. Thanks for listening.